Thank you all for attending our third Budget Committee meeting to discuss our 2018-2019 budget. As a reminder, we do have another Budget Committee meeting scheduled for March 27th at 3:00 p.m. with a public hearing following at 4:00 p.m. I'd suggest that we identify some additional dates between March 27th and April 10th for us to discuss Dr. Joseph's proposed budget as a board and to receive additional feedback prior to us voting on a budget to present to the mayor on April 10th. I'll work with Dr. David Sevier, our Director of Board Relations, to schedule some additional dates. We've also scheduled a March 22nd meeting with the Council's Education and Budget and Finance Committee meeting at 5:30 p.m. Please mark your calendars. The focus of this budget committee is for staff to give the board and community more information pertaining to the MEA MOU and its budget implications, and as well as to hear more about the salary analysis that was done for teachers, administrators, and non-certificated employees. Board members and I encourage you to continue to ask questions around these issues as they are key drivers for our school system's budget. We also encourage you to continue to send budget questions to our staff. We appreciate the staff's efforts to respond to questions in a timely fashion. As we prepared for today's meeting, prior to staff providing us information about the MOU and the salary analysis, we thought it would be good for board members to share what they hope they can accomplish during this budget season. So we know that this budget is going to be tight, and we will be working with the Mayor Briley, and the council to approve our budget. Our strategic plan identifies 7 priority areas that are on the screen, and they're not on the screen.
Oh, they have a copy, hard copies?
Okay. Yeah. Find it for me. Okay.
Keep pulling it up.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. Okay, I'll just begin. Our strategic plan identifies 7 priority areas, and they will be on the screen shortly. And I would just like to ask the board members to go around the table, and based upon those 7 key priorities, what is it that they're hoping we can focus our efforts on this year, just so that we can hear from each of them. And I'll open this question up and begin with my hopes, and then I will ask for comments from Dr. Joseph, and also to follow with the presentation. So as we focus, we've spent a tremendous amount of time working on our strategic framework as a board, and we developed these 7 key areas. And I think overall, my hopes are that we can continue to work as well as we have over the past 2 years with Dr. Joseph as a group to continue to move these agendas forwards. And I guess that's basically it. So we'll let our chair, Anna.
I have a lot of issues around these priorities. I would have to say, just out of the gate, the college and career readiness, I think is going to be threatened with some of the budget initiatives that we have. I know it will be affected a lot at McGavock High School. I sat down with the principal, Robin Wall, a couple Fridays ago, and went over his budget line by line, and there are so many things he's going to have to cut because he's losing so much money in Title I funding, $744,000, and he's going to have to cut his after-school tutoring, summer school, his ACT boot camps. There's just too much, and so that making all those cuts will negatively impact the performance of his students at that school. He will also have to cut a campus security position at the largest high school in Metro. I just don't see where where that should be a priority. So that is a huge concern for me, as well as the curriculum instruction and assessment, because we want our students to succeed. We want them to be college and career ready. And if we negatively impact budgets the way the proposal is, then I don't see how that's a possibility.
Thank you, Thais. As I look across the priorities, several things are important to me. School culture and climate, certainly teaching and learning is important. And I have a commitment that is undeniable to equity. And I think my years of service teaching in the inner city is proof of that. And clearly, we are an underfunded school district. According to the Council of Great City Schools, MNPS ranks 54 out of 67 in large urban school districts in per pupil funding. So it's clear that the inner city schools need more resources. However, what we haven't done, or what I haven't heard as a board member, is an improvement plan. How do we change curriculum instruction? How do we change the school culture? And the improvement plan should lead the budget, not the other way around. And I think we need to be careful not to expect the budget to lead our plan for improvement. Now, we've written a very lofty strategic framework, but the how of this plan has not been presented to the board. Presently, we have 10 schools that are on the priority list, but it appears that 13 additional schools will join that list at the end of this school year. So that is more than double the number of priority schools that we have. So clearly, our students need evidence-based, research-based programs, and our teachers need to buy into that. We need to be sure that teachers are on board. The community and the board were recently informed about the district's $7.5 million shortfall, and this was due to lost projected enrollment. And consequently, there's now a freeze at central office, and not only at central office, but on the schools' budgets as well. And this has, on one hand, we hear $7.5 million, that's only less than 1% of our budget. But on the other hand, when we have a freeze that's across the district and that's impacting schools' abilities to buy paper and supplies, that's a hardship. So I contend that we've got to take responsibility as a board and as an administration for that $7.5 million shortfall, and I wish that we could unfreeze the school budget. But this freeze has caused angst across the school district and now throughout the community. The $7.5 million shortfall, the reallocation of Title I funding to schools with 75% poverty or greater, and the anticipated expansion of our priority schools have caused a level of anxiety across the district, across the schools, and across the community. This anxiety has led to possible misinterpretation and misinformation about the budget. And I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but I do think for the sake of transparency, we need to look at a review of expenditures and to ensure that that our monies are being spent appropriately, and to show transparency and for fiscal accountability. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Based on these priorities by goals, obviously we want the best curriculum instruction that our students can have. And in my experience as a parent, especially with children attending different types of schools across the city, the primary difference that I have seen in my children who have attended private or charter schools does tend to be the school culture and climate, and not just the climate in the building among students, but of the expectations of those students and holding them accountable, not just our teachers accountable. So that is a priority of mine, as well as priority 5, the performance management and operational efficiency. And I think this one is so important because in order to push more resources out to the schools to get that high curriculum instruction in school culture and climate, we have to be as efficient as possible at central office and within the organization, so there are more funds freed. And I do, hats off to Mr. Henson with the light energy efficient bulbs that we've recouped some costs from over the years that we can free up resources. So I think as we can continue to comb through and look for all areas of waste, that would just free up more money to get out to those students at schools.
So we talk a lot in retreats about communications, and I have a professional bias that 9 out of 10 problems are communications problems, and we don't do a good enough job as a board and as an organization communicating out to the community. So, I really want us to focus on priority number 7 in addition to the others, but it's a two-way street. We would really invite those of you in the audience to engage as well on the fact, as Ms. Spearing pointed out, we are an underfunded school system. That's the biggest problem here, so we look forward to more conversations with you.
I also think that school culture and climate is very important, and also the culture and climate throughout the district as a whole is important. And I guess my second issue would be equity. But I did prepare some comments tonight that I wanted to share as it relates to our equity discussion, and also just in general, because I do have some very serious concerns about our budget process. So these are my remarks. Let me start by saying that I support giving more money to our poorest schools. Since I was first elected in 2012, I have frequently asked for more conversations about equity rather than conversations about school privatization. I successfully pushed to expand our community schools program, and I've consistently advocated to bring greater resources to children who need them the most. Just so you know, this is not about my own children, because their school would actually gain under this proposed budget. So that's not my problem. My problem is that this whole budget process has been a mess. The rollout of this year's budget was not transparent, the numbers don't add up, and every attempt that I've made to seek clarity has been met with resistance. I think it's important here to walk through some details to explain what I mean, so bear with me. First, the board only recently learned that the district is facing a purported $7.5 million shortfall for the current school year. The administration learned about this problem in fall, but the board was not made aware of the amount of the shortfall or of any administrative plans to alleviate it. Although we've been told that we must now make up for this shortfall in the final months of the school year, some question whether school budgets were already adjusted for the enrollment drop back in September. Nevertheless, the administration has waited until the last 2.5 months of the school year to place a freeze on school spending. Schools that were careful not to misuse funds during the year are suddenly left without money to buy any food and supplies for year-end events and celebrations, including celebrations of student achievement. Schools don't even have money left to buy office supplies, including paper, toner, and other basics for the remainder of the school year. Meanwhile, central office staff continue to travel and spend during the school spending freeze. Before we take 1 penny out of our classrooms, we must ensure that we have made every effort at savings in our own management. Money must stay closest to the child. This means management must cut travel, perks, out-of-town trainings, and all unnecessary positions. That is not happening now. Leadership must make every effort to alleviate the severe cuts our schools are being asked to endure. The message to our schools must be that we will all share this burden together. Since I learned about the $7.5 million shortfall, I have been asking about management costs. I've requested the increase to central office costs as well as all consulting costs for the last 2 years. The board has yet to receive a full operating budget proposal, but central office has rolled out conflicting information about management costs. Upon request, the board was sent a graph indicating the breakdown of central office costs back in fiscal year 2016-17. The graph shows that central office costs were $290 million that year. Instead of sending the board central office costs for the current school year, central office included this line in the email we received, quote, fiscal year 18 can be found on the centralized services portion of the funding allocation tab in the school budgets, and that's not something that we're privy to. Upon further investigation, I learned that this year's central office cost increased by $16 million to $306 million. But the proposed central office costs for 2018-19 remain in question. In the original budget tool distributed to schools in February, there was a reported $9 million increase in centralized services. Then last week, parents at a PAC meeting were told that central office costs would increase next year by $8 million, and parents began to question the increase. I've received reports that at some point after the PAC meeting, central office resent a new budget to schools reflecting a decrease in centralized services of $14 million, from $315 million to $301 million. However, schools were told there was a $7.5 million decrease in centralized services. This leaves an unexplained discrepancy of $6.5 million. To further confuse things, board members received an email after the PAC meeting stating that the PAC was given incorrect information based on a clerical error. According to that email, central office costs will decrease this year by $12 million, from $315 million to $303 million. Which of these numbers is accurate? I'm not sure. Other problems include these. At the beginning of our budget discussions, the board attended a brief presentation about the proposed redistribution of Title I funds. At that meeting, we discussed Title I shifts, but we were not informed that budget cuts for next year were also being impacted by dropping enrollment. Therefore, when the budget cuts were formally announced to schools, many, including me, were understandably confused. As a board member, I spent an entire week trying to ferret out the various causes of the cuts, while also fielding phone calls from upset teachers and parents. This was a tremendous waste of my time and energy. The board was not fully informed, as we should have been from day one. Meanwhile, principals were told that the board supported the proposed Title I reallocation and that we had pushed the administration to shift the Title I funds. This is not true. The board never engaged in any real discussion of the proposed changes prior to the rollout to schools, and we have yet to vote on the Title I changes. Voting is the only way that the board actually weighs in on an issue, but when I tried to submit my informal feedback on the proposal, my call was not returned. Principals and teachers remain afraid of sharing their input into this process. When staff members are terrified to share their thoughts on board decisions that impact how our classrooms operate, this district has a problem. Being informed about how my vote will impact schools and classrooms makes me a better board member. And finally, schools and parents report that there are just too many problems with the budgets that have been shared. Numbers do not align. There have been clerical errors and miscalculations. There are reports that salaries have been overestimated. There are reports that the budget tool shows discrepancies in calculations of average salaries. There are reports of arbitrary pay increases for some employees that do not align with the appropriate pay scale. Schools remain confused about the process and changes, even when they have worked with central office staff. At the school level, budget plans were distributed to principals and then retracted. At the board's first Title I meeting, a proposed budget was distributed and then retracted before we were able to fully review it. I have spoken to a large number of people involved with the budget process across the entire district, and they all unanimously tell me the same thing. This budget does not make sense. Something's amiss. In short, the budget process has not been transparent this year. Schools and parents are concerned about all of the impromptu budget changes and conflicting information we've received, and the message I've received is clear. We need an independent review of our proposed budget and an audit of all expenditures for the last 2 years before we move forward. I hope that the concerns brought to my attention are somehow misconceptions, or that there is some sort of reasonable explanation for the discrepancies I've outlined. But I'm obligated to the taxpayers to answer all questions and to ensure that the process is fully transparent. At this point, there is just too much confusion surrounding the budget. None of us on this board have expertise in finance, and we need help from someone who does, and the only way to build back trust with the community is to request an audit. And on a final note, I'd also request that we remove the freeze on school spending for the remainder of the year until we are assured that we are not balancing the budget on the backs of our students.
My priorities are similar to those of my colleagues. Priority 6, in my estimation, should be the #1 priority at this time. equity and access. The social and emotional learning deals with the culture of the school as well as the classrooms, and I think that's a very, very important area. The ability to provide restorative practice to our students is important as well. Also, I think that it's important for all of us to commit and have fidelity to the curriculum that we are to follow so that it is consistent across the board. Okay, we're giving our priorities, what you thought might be your priorities in terms of our
priorities from our priorities that we already
yeah.
decided on?
Right.
To what end? I mean, why am I answering this question?
We would just like to get feedback in knowing what's a primary concern for you as a board member as it relates to just any feedback you want to give us on the priorities that we've already established. I know, just giving everybody an opportunity to speak. If there's anything you'd like to say, really, because I know we've already set these priorities.
Yeah, so the thought is essentially, we know that this is going to be a tight budget season, and there's no way to accomplish everything that we'd like to accomplish in the strategic plan in 1 year. So thinking about this year and taking a step forward, what would you like to see us be able to accomplish moving the needle forward next year as we expect to improve outcomes for children at an accelerated rate?
We did such a good job identifying priorities. It's really hard to.
Yeah.
Let's go with equity and access. I think it's foundational to just about everything else that's up there. Okay.
You don't have any comments around that, equity and access?
I think they're foundational to everything else we're trying to accomplish.
Okay, thank you.
Kind of highly reflected in the current budget that was proposed as well.
Thank you. Dr. Joseph?
Thank you so much for starting the meeting in this way and giving us an opportunity to, just kind of clear the air and understand what matters to everybody, because it's important. What I love about my job and what I love about the work that we have done together is that, over the course of these past 18 months, we've had the tremendous and extraordinary opportunity to dream together, be clear about priorities, and establish clear priorities. And then we've had an opportunity to be clear about what matters most in terms of accelerating outcomes for children, because we recognize that right now performance isn't where we want it to be. So your budget is your public display of your value system. And I think it's important that you align. We always think about how we go about aligning our budgets to what matters. And one of the things I pride myself on, have always prided myself on, is the ability to be transparent and clear. I strive to be very clear and communicative and transparent. And the fact is, as we work through this budget season and this budget process, it's messy. And sometimes messy work done publicly can seem chaotic, but there's never been a time when I've in my 22-year career that we've not made it to the finish line clear and effective and accurate. So, and this process is no different, in my opinion. Just a couple points I do want to clarify. In October, once we got the account that we were going to be short, I can push out. We did communicate to all board members that we were going to have a shortfall in the enrollment. We didn't specifically lay out the cost of what that would be at that time because we didn't know what the cost of that would be per se, but we did communicate in October that there was going to be at least a 2,000 student shortfall that would impact the budget this current year. And that came up specifically when we went to the council and we spoke with the council at a committee meeting that semester, because specifically one of our council members, if I'm not mistaken, it was John Cooper, was asking lots of questions, being the budget expert that he is. Was asking questions because he knew that there were going to be implications. So I'm okay with us communicating that we didn't know the $7.5 million number per se, but I wouldn't just say that this should be a surprise to anyone, particularly members that have been on the board for years and know that this is, when you have a shortfall within a year, you got to make the cuts. We have put in a budget freeze, and we did one last year as well. So this isn't the first year we did this as a precautionary measure. Last year, where we didn't have a deficit, we put it there because it's important for us to do so. We would not allow any school to go without paper. We would not allow any school to go without materials. We have asked our schools to, just send requests for us to release the dollars, because we want to make sure dollars get where they're supposed to go. So I don't want the public to be alarmed or feel like, my school doesn't have paper. My children who attend 2 schools, one that was identified today that talked about shortfalls, we'll have their needs met. And this is a process, and we're early in the process, and we're talking through the process. And the good thing is, I think for the community and for you as board members who have been in this process for years, you hopefully can acknowledge that this has been a more transparent, if yet messy, process than before, because this is the time I think we've pushed out information more openly to the public for publics to see budgets and see how we're doing things, and because it's the right thing to do. I think the conversation that we're having regarding equity is a great conversation to have, and it's one that we ought to have, because equity is about getting our students what they need when they need it. And we've got lots of challenge. I don't think there is a school within this district that doesn't have challenge. Our goal is, how do we ensure that we get our children what they need when they need it, and how do we continue with a helping heart? And our ability to communicate with one another as a board and an administration is essential. I do apologize when there are times when someone may call me and I can't get back to you immediately, because I have one of the most exciting jobs in America that keeps me constantly consumed. But I do try to follow up. But there are times when it may take me 24 hours to respond or follow up. And I do, forgive me and apologize, but I do try to follow up, and most of you do know that. But I'm excited that we're in a process where we're getting parents engaged and we're getting people to understand about budgets. And it's messy. I'm not afraid of messiness, because I've been in a lot of hard work in a lot of places, and I think to get dramatic change, it's never neat and easy. I would actually argue when things are neat and easy, you're probably not working hard enough to get the dramatic change that needs to happen. So I think this is our moment. And if we can have the courage to continue to communicate, collaborate, and work through our challenge, I think we'll come out much better than we were. If we begin to point fingers and begin to accuse and make accusations that are inaccurate or unfounded, we get ourselves in what we call the box. And I know we've read Leadership and Self-Deception, and it's something we have to strive to stay away from. And it's hard. It's hard to do. But I believe our continued communication and collaboration and work through this tough challenge. Not only this isn't going to be the only tough budget season we have. We probably can anticipate, until we get a state funding system that adequately funds children in this state and in this city, we're always going to have challenge, and there's always going to be competition for dollars. Our question becomes, how do we communicate, collaborate, and work together to move forward and get this district to be what I know it can be, which is what you have envisioned it to be, the fastest improving urban district in America. And to do that, we've got to make sure that our employees are compensated, because we have to have the best employees in America to move this work, and because our employees are working so hard and so diligently with limited resource. And I don't sleep often thinking about how we get this right for them as we're working through that. And that's why we have Deborah Story here today. And Deborah's going to come up and she's going to talk with us about the salary analysis that was conducted, because if we're going to move forward, we have to move forward in a way that where, one, we know where we are, and two, we know where we need to go. Because we don't self-fund ourselves, we have to work with the mayor and the city and the state to make sure our employees can be compensated adequately over the long haul. So Deborah will come up and she'll talk a little bit about the analysis that was conducted, and she's also going to talk with us about the MNEA MOU. That is important because we value our employees, and one of the things that you charged me to do as a board, and I hope I've been doing as your director of schools, is working closely with our unions, both MNEA, SEIU, and the steel workers. And we've had a very fruitful relationship with one another. I think one that we have been building trust and collaboration and communication. And together, we want to try to figure out how we make this the best place in America to work for all employees. And I thank them for their collaboration with us. We have an MOU, and that MOU, particularly, we have, as you know, signed the MOU for the SEIU. But the MOU for MNEA did have some costs associated with it, and those would be long-term ongoing costs, and we just want to make sure we're able to effectively fund it. We don't want to just say yes and not have the ability to fund. So we thought it'd be essential. We gave you the information, but we wanted to just publicly talk about it because we haven't talked about it publicly. And then we have to go back and collectively, as a board and an administration, work with the city to see what can be done over time, because this isn't going to be a problem that is solved overnight. It's going to be one where we're going to really need to have some long-term commitment and a systemic plan to do. But for my final thought is I welcome any type of audit or analysis of our work. I think it's healthy, and I never like anyone to question or doubt whether we're doing anything appropriately or inappropriately. So I welcome it so we can put that aside and really focus on what we should be focusing on, which is how do we ensure that 86,000 children get excellence by design every day. We'll figure out if we need to do that, how we go about doing that. I would recommend working with the Council of Great City Schools to do it because it'd be cheaper, because they are multi-million-dollar endeavors typically, at least $1 million to do an audit, and we're tight on cash. But if we need to do it, we should. I will turn it over to Ms. Story, and we will get the feedback on this.
Thank you, Dr. Joseph. We don't have the PowerPoint loaded just yet, but I believe you have the presentation in front of you. The highlights of this last meeting, I provided you a detailed study, and I know that was a lot to digest. So what I've done is I've taken that detailed study and just narrowed it down to a handful of pages, and hopefully it would give you a good view of the recommendations and the study. So if you go to the second page, beyond the cover, this is a highlight of the analysis for our certificated pay scales, basically our teachers. We compared 9 Tennessee districts, 13 districts across the South and the Southeast, and also we used the Education Research Institute survey. We looked at, when we looked at the Tennessee districts, which are typically smaller and lower paid districts, we're the second largest in Tennessee, it would appear as though that our salaries are competitive for our teachers. But when you look at the ERI data, it shows a different picture, that we are not as competitive when we look at districts within a 450-mile radius or when we look nationally. Okay. And this next page will give you an example of our pay scale for our teachers. Oh, okay, great, thank you. Okay. Okay, here we go. So this next page, or this page, shows, give you an example of what I'm mentioning. When you look at a first-year teacher in MNPS, the average salary is $44,284. When you look at a first-year teacher across Tennessee, the median pay is $37,115. When you go 150 miles for a one-year teacher, a teacher with one-year experience, the median is $40,026. And across the U.S., is $41,445. So we're pretty competitive at 1 year. The further you move up in experience, then we lose traction. At 15 years, our average salary is $57,946. For a 15-year employee in Tennessee is $58,530. 450 miles out, $63,330. And across the U.S., $64,908. And so that gives you a sense of the fact that we are not as competitive, and we do recruit nationwide for teachers to come to Nashville. The next few graphs, I won't go in detail with you on these, but this will give you kind of the breakdown at different year points: 1 year, 5 year, 10 years, 15 years, and 18 years for Tennessee. The same for the 450-mile radius comparisons, and you can see Metro Nashville is the blue. And across the U.S., again, we're in blue, and we are not competitive. We're below the median rate. The recommendations for our certificated pay scale is to increase the pay structure and provide step increases annually to keep the scale current. Also, to make pay structure spread percentages more consistent between steps and education levels. Right now, they're not consistent. We also recommend removing steps 22 to 25 to advance pay to higher levels more rapidly, but this would not negatively impact our employees' pay, because in adjusting the ranges, the compensation would be higher at step 21 than it is today at step 25. Okay. The administrative pay scale. This is a scale on which we pay our principals, assistant principals, executive directors, EDSSIs, and coordinators. We compared data from 8 Tennessee districts. What we found is that MNPS at steps 1 through 5 are consistently above median. However, the maximum rates are consistently below median. Most competitors have more steps, 10 to 11. MNPS has 8. The recommendation is that we standardize the step range at 1.7 and the education range at 2.5, meaning that from step 1 to 2, 3 to 4 would be 1.7 between each of those steps. When we look at bachelor's to master's plus, we would make the range between those degree levels 2.5%. We also recommend standardizing the pay scale spread between the AP tier at 2.5% and the principal tier at 2.5%. What I mean there is an elementary school AP salary scale would be 2.5% higher than or lower than the middle school. No, the middle school would be 2.5% higher than the elementary. The high school would be 2.5% higher than the middle. Same thing for principals. As we go from elementary to high, there would be a 2.5% difference. We also recommend increasing the pay scale difference between the high school principal and their supervisor, the EDSSI. Currently, that scale difference is 1%. We're recommending that it be 4.5%. Right now, it's about a $1,000 difference between a high school principal and their supervisor. We're suggesting that there be at least a $5,000 difference. On the support pay scale, we used the Economic Research Institute, and we benchmarked 35 positions. The analysis indicated that MNPS is generally competitive at the midpoint of the range. What we recommend is that we smooth the spread between the grades and the steps where appropriate, because sometimes the range could be larger or smaller. We want to smooth it out. And we also suggest targeting the average spread between the steps to be 1.56 or 1.6%. In order to make these changes, the last page will give you the estimated expense. And I must say that what we are recommending here for certificated was not the most expensive option to completely correct the pay scale for certificated staff. This is option 3. And that would be $18,042,438, 4.7% increase. For administrative, $1.53 million, which is a 4.2% increase, and support would be $5.7 million at a 4% increase. The total increase, and this includes taxes and benefits, would be $25.4 million or 4.5%, which is a similar percentage that we gave employees last year. Okay. Any questions?
I do have a couple. On the administrative pay scale, little box right there, the recommendation, number 2, you said 2.5% for all the tiers, but it says here 5.2%. So is it 2.5?
Okay, for our administrative pay scale? Okay. To standardize the pay scale spread between the AP tiers, that means elementary, middle, that would be 2.5%.
Okay, but
between each
on our
one.
document, it says 5.2. That's
Oh,
why I
does it?
asked. It does.
Oh, I have a typo? One's assistant principal, Yes, one is assistant principal and one is principal. The principal is 5.2.
Okay.
Okay.
It concerns me to think about removing steps for teachers that have worked in this district for 22 years or have 22 years or 25 years of experience. What's the rationale behind that?
Well, it would move them, it would get them to a higher rate of pay quicker. And I'd be happy to show you the page where you can actually see the recommended range. Today, an employee, a teacher would top out at like $59,000 with 25 years. The recommendation is that that number would be 60+ thousand, even at the grade 20, at the level, at the step 21.
Did I understand that you're recommending a step raise every year?
Mm-hmm.
But then, so a step raise after year 1, a step raise after year 2, yes? All the way to 22.
Yeah, to
And
21.
then they don't get any more raises.
Right.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, well, they go to 25 today and top out at 59.
So you're saying it's better than what they have now?
Yes.
Yeah, the goal of that would be to get them to the top of the scale much quicker than what they would do. So by reducing the amount of time it takes to get to the top of the scale, it's a benefit for a staff member.
You can say it's a benefit, but I don't agree with that. Because if a teacher is getting a step raise every year, and then once they get to 22 years, sorry, no more step raises, that is not a benefit.
So when
Teachers are going to say, wow, what happened?
And the answer would be, we made it faster. Where it used to take you to get to 25 to stop and not get anything anymore, we're going to get it to you faster, and then you'd get the COLA. So it's a way. I don't think I would ask or advise, ask MNEA what they think about this, and I think they would argue. I don't think that there's anyone that would say that this hurts. It actually helps because it'll get you there faster, and then because at some point you're going to stop. Whether it's 25 years or they move to 30, whether they move to 35, there's going to be a time where it stops.
I'm also going to ask teachers, too. I'm not going to just ask MNEA. My
Yeah.
second question is about the salary of EDSSIs. What is the salary of EDSSIs right now?
I think they top out for EDSSI with a doctorate degree, I believe tops out at 119.
Okay, and how many EDSSIs?
Well, I think it's 126. Whatever it is, the difference between the highest paid EDSSI is $1,000 difference than the highest paid high school principal. The difference is $1,000, and I didn't bring much.
And is it
my
true
ranges.
the EDSSIs all got new cars this week?
New cars?
That would be a no.
New cars?
Are EDSSIs, are they receiving a car right now? Do they have a car that they drive?
Not to my knowledge.
That's not what we hear. That's not what I hear from my constituents.
Can you answer? We can have,
So the EDSSIs are not driving a staff car.
we'll have Dr.
I just want to get a clear answer, clear, accurate answer on this.
We will, Ms. Spearing, I will give you a clear,
Okay,
accurate.
I'm waiting.
So, Ms.
Answer.
Spearing, throughout the school system, all of the various members drive cars, so we repurpose 5 cars because each of the EDSSIs drive to 12 to 13 schools around the city. And so we repurposed 5 cars to them that were existing in the transportation area. It's the same cars that happen in the operational side to a lot of people. You know, we're about 550 square miles in the school system. So they have 5 cars that all 12 of them use.
Okay.
And the rationale, if you so there are 2 options. You can use one of the fleet of cars that we have, and in that we pay for the gas and the mileage, or we pay 52 cents per mile when they drive their own car. So it's one of the reasons large school districts typically have a fleet that they work towards, because you will find most districts will tell you that there's an economic benefit as opposed to paying that 52 cents per mile as they do that. But we can get you an analysis of the fleet, and we can compare our fleet to fleets that for districts our size, just to have comparative analysis. But it is a benefit to the district, or we wouldn't do it. But I'm sure Mr. Henson can give more specifics to those types of costs.
And Cito, they do not, the EDSSIs do not drive these cars home with them at night, is that
No,
correct?
they do not drive the cars, but it's no different than many of our current folks that work. We have a lot of set of cars, and they drop them off at home, or they could leave them at a school. So that's how the arrangement is.
Will?
Thank you, Ms. Hunter, and thank you, Ms. Story, for the analysis. It's something we've been waiting a long time to receive. The only thing I would like to request is a little look at the numbers just a little bit differently. Instead of like a 450-mile radius, which takes in a lot of school districts, I'd like to see kind of some one-on-one comparisons between us and peer districts. So, you know, just in terms of how we talk about it, it's, you know, going to be easier to talk about kind of here's where we are relative to Charlotte and Atlanta and Austin and Louisville. And if we could, I'm sure that data is somewhere with
it's
ERI.
in the study?
Yes.
It's in the study?
So if we could tease some of that out and look at it, that'd be terrific.
Sure. It's in the study that I provided you last week, and I'll be happy to do some specific charts.
I've got it already?
You weren't here, were you?
No,
I have
no, I
one.
wasn't.
I have one for you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
I don't have any
Ready?
questions.
Okay. Should I move to the
Move forward,
next?
yeah, MNEA, MOU, fiscal implications.
Going to help me find it? Okay. And I believe you have this in front of you as well. And I've attached to your copy the MOU, if you want to make reference.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go ahead, we're going to get that up. The sheet before you is the estimated financial impact of the MOU. And before I go over this, let me say that the MOU was a 23-page document. Other than having to give extra consideration for the financial impact, everything else in that document was agreed upon. Just realizing that, you know, we're talking about nearly $8 million, further conversation and consideration had to be given. So the first item was exception pay. The proposal was to change or move the hourly rate for teachers when they have to work extra time beyond the normal workday, let's say summer school. The hourly rate currently is $25 an hour. The proposal was to increase that rate by $20 an hour to $45. If you look at this past year, February of 17 to January of 18, we paid 129,143.8 hours out at $25 an hour. If we took that same amount of time and paid $45, we'd be paying an extra $3 million. Do you have it? Okay.
It's on your computer.
Oh, okay. That's okay. That's okay. The next item was holiday pay. The proposal was to pay Veterans Day, add an extra holiday to the holiday schedule for 12 and 10-month employees. This would increase the paid days for teachers to 202 days and paid days for support to 195. Currently, we pay 201 and 194 days. For certificated staff, the increase or the expense to add an additional holiday would be $1.9 million for certificated staff and $322,500 for support staff. Voluntary workshops and training activities. These would be any type of training that's not required for a teacher to attend. They're proposing that be changed from the current $85 a day to their daily rate, which our daily rate for our certificated staff or teacher is $259 a day. So when we look at the number of days that have been worked voluntarily from February of last year to January this year, it was 13,310 days. If we multiply that by the difference of 85 and the average of 259, that would be an additional $2.7 million to the budget. The next item was teacher attendance at events. The proposal is that teachers be able to attend all school events at no charge. The impact there would be on the student activity fund, but it could also be a positive. It could be that more people attend events and purchase more concessions. So that's that's the impact for the schools, not so much for the local budget. There was also a recommendation that there be a compensation review, that there be a committee composed to look at salaries for teachers. And the proposal there was that certificated staff receive a 5% COLA. Well, that all staff receive a 5% COLA, but for certificated staff, that 5% will equate to $20 million. For support staff, that would equate to nearly $6 million. Okay, so that would be $26 million to provide a 5% COLA. So it's our recommendation that this be looked at, realizing our current budget climate. I believe everything here, to be able to do this, there would be little else that we'd be able to do. Okay. Dr. Joseph, any comments?
Yeah, so again, I think I commend the collaborative team that came together to really look at this. I think they really hit on some key areas. I do think that there are some things that we can move on, as we look at attendance, not just for teachers. I think all employees should have the opportunity to be in activities in schools and things of that nature, and we should be encouraging that just for morale and things of that nature. But for some of the other items, I do think we should go back to the collaborative committee. I think this is conversations that we should bring to our council, and I think we should bring it to Mayor Briley, and I think we should have a conversation, because for this to work, and I think without question, when we, this community, Nashville, knows what we get in our great teachers and our great employees. And I think universally, people understand we have to do something to improve salaries and compensation, and it's one of our great priorities. How we do it, though, is going to take collaboration, and it's going to take communication and a thoughtful long-term plan. And I think we need to demonstrate leadership, both as a board and an administration, to collaboratively work with our city to figure out how we do this before we pen some of those details in, to be sure. So my advice would be, now that it is public knowledge, that we take it forward with communications. And if there's a way to go back to the committee and at least come up with an MOU, bring the MOU and the things that we do agree upon to get that done, and with the few salary points that have the most significant impact, look to see how we can have a long-term plan, because we don't want to, one thing I pride myself on is not promising something and then not delivering. And we want to make sure we have the capacity to deliver, and seeing how we don't, make our own money. It's just going to be a collaborative conversation that I think we ought to have. So that would be my recommendation, would be to go back, and the things we can agree upon there, let's do. And the ones we can't, and I think you recommended that there be like a finance kind of committee looking at maybe some long-term recommendations on strategic salary, because again, we have work to do. One of the biggest drivers in this current budget that we're looking at, as we talked about, as you saw on those sheets, was to give a 2% raise in step to employees was about $21 million, and I believe with 3%, we're looking at $25 million on top of the salary. So that is the biggest driver of our budget request. And as we have communicated, we anticipate this being a lean budget year, with that being our first priority. So the commitment is there. We have to figure out the how, and we're going to be committed to doing so. How do we get to that 4.5%, I believe you said, to make the whole piece whole, is going to be, it's going to take strategic, thoughtful work that I know we can accomplish over time if we just collaborate and figure out how to do that. And I think we have a commitment to do it. But we have to, I want to be a realist in that, and I want to be extremely responsible as we go about doing it as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So I'd like to thank you guys for showing up late, some of you for Dr. Joseph's coming to the board party. But we know that we have a lot of work going forwards as it relates to our budget, and Dr. Joseph has, in my opinion, over-communicated to us that this is going to be a tough budget season. So we appreciate you all coming. Thank you. And this meeting is adjourned.
Good job.